Okay, you guys can hear me okay? How's it going, everyone? Hey, Raymond, Joe, Julius, Jeff, John, Harold, Ahmed, Bob. Looks like I know all you guys. Most of you. Jordy, Randall. It has been a while. No, sir, we are not going to kill it today. Let me, I'm sure most of you that have been with us for a while kind of understand that the focus is on development and making the tools necessary to be able to automate the type of analysis that we're doing as much as possible, and absolutely as minimal the amount of marketing as possible. So, to be quite honest with you, all I really care about is making enough income to be able to support the team that I've put together until all this development is finalized and we can actually automate the majority of this process. So we have been working night and day, literally, for how long is it? At least 2 months. So I've got 2 full-time developers. Josh has been with me for, it'll be exactly 2 years in February. Akosh, so Josh is on the volume tools, and Akosh has been with me for right at 4 years. And he's the guy that's helped me build this toolbar and the divergence algorithm. So, hey, Bill, how's it going? So essentially what we've been doing is getting everything completely sorted out, working properly and streamlined, making it as efficient and as fast as it can possibly be, and as easy to understand as possible. So we've been unifying the layout, the properties grid, and the documentation, and cleaning up the properties and sorting out some of the issues that we've had with NinjaTrader 8. And it has been a process, let me tell you. It's taken quite a long time. They've been putting in 12, 14 hours a day for the past 2 weeks. Akosh, probably even longer than that. And of course, I'm doing, at least 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. 6 or 8 on Sundays. So, long story short, it's going to be interesting to hear what all I say today, because I really have no idea. So we'll see. My main thing that I want to do today is not so much try to convince anyone of anything, try to sell anyone on anything. Most of you that are in here are actually already with us, from what I can see. So you'll be interested to see what I've been working on, and that's what I'm going to show you mostly. Those of you that are brand new, that have never heard me speak, or maybe just watched some videos on YouTube, what I'm going to be talking about today is probably going to go right over your head to some extent. I mean, depending upon how much experience you have with trading and some of the methods I'll be talking about. But really, the presentation I wanted to give today, it's just not possible. I mean, we've just yesterday finalized the properties grids, the layout. I've had to rebuild the workspaces. I'm in the process of rebuilding the automation templates, and I wanted to be able to release yesterday, but such as the life of the development process. It takes as long as it takes, and there are always roadblocks and snags and things that you run into. I mean, the level of programming that we're doing is by far beyond anything that anyone has done in this industry. And it's that way for a very particular reason. And that reason is automate as much of the discretionary components as possible and eliminate as much human decision making. Remove as much of the decision-making process from the trading as possible. So in order to do that, we have to create some pretty high-level pattern recognition algorithms. And that's what I'm going to be going into a little bit today. So just to kind of go through this briefly, I'm going to show you, actually I was talking to a guy last night and he sent me a screenshot of his account. So I just wanted to kind of show that, just to show you guys what some of the members that I speak with on a regular basis, how well they're doing. I had put together a track record in 2017. I'm not even going to mention that because I don't want to show it, and I don't want to have to, make it look like I'm trying to sell you based on whatever performance or blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I put that track record together in about a year. And towards the end of that year, actually it was late December, early January of 2018, I had a drawdown of about 20% within a couple of weeks from just simply, human error, making mistakes, doing the stupid stuff that, you tend to do as kind of a newbie, adding to losing positions, moving your stops, that sort of thing. So I don't know what happened to me psychologically. I think I was trying to increase the performance to a degree. Essentially, I was trying to hit it out of the park for a webinar I was about to have, and ended up getting into that psychological tailspin. And I basically just stopped. And my focus from that point on, which has really been the overarching focus, has been to automate as much of the trade management aspect as possible. We can automate the entries as well to a huge degree, but that's one side of the trade that I want to leave to some discretion. I want to have full control over that. But once the trade has been entered, there's really, 6, 7 things that if they happen, I need to at least tighten the stop, take half off, or close the position. And that's what I ended up having trouble with, which did so much damage to that account so quickly. So that's been my goal, is to get not only everything moved over to NinjaTrader 8, which is the new platform. If some of you don't know about NinjaTrader, we've moved to a new platform, updated the technology and the code base. And that transition, because of the complexity of the tools, has been really just a massive, massive undertaking. And from what I gather, it's been the same way for just about everyone else in my field here. So long story short, I'm going to kind of just talk to you guys about some stuff, show you some screenshots, go over some charts, show you the tools, give you a bit of an overview of how I've been piecing together what we've been working on and what the next steps are, what my goals are for the rest of the year, and what kind of timeline you guys can expect. So if you guys have any questions, let me address them now. And then I'll just move right along here with whatever. Who knows? we'll see how it goes. What about the update to the, yeah, that's going to be, we'll have an update for that next week, Jordy, for the toolbar for Ninja 8. And then my goal is to have a beta before Christmas. So we've made a huge, the problem has been transferring the win forms. Let me just kind of do this for a second. So this is a floating toolbar that controls all of the charts. It allows us to apply market geometry, which I'm going to get into in a minute. Volume profile analysis, Fibonacci. There's like 30 different functions in this toolbar. And the alert system is pretty incredible. So I'm going to get a little bit technical because that's kind of my nature. The next presentation we'll have will be after we release all of this, and I plan to release everything on Tuesday. I did plan, like I said, on Friday, but it's just a huge amount of work, and we're trying to get it to where we can release everything all on the same day and not have to do this, release too soon. Some people have some issues, and then we have to do another update 2 days later, and then another update 2 days later. We're trying to completely eliminate that, do everything all at once, make sure everything's working perfectly, and then you guys will be much happier and better off. Okay, so this is all based on what's called win forms. So all of these kind of user interface properties, grids and whatnot, this is all win forms. And some of this stuff is dynamic. So for instance, for the fibs, we have this fibs list, and you can add different lines, you can create all sorts of things. And building this out in the new code base in WPF is really just a massive undertaking. So it's like moving from, Windows 98 to Windows 10 in a day, and trying to figure out how to make stuff work. So working with WinForms is pretty straightforward, and it's kind of drag and drop, and you can customize and do whatever you need to do. It's fairly easy to master. And then you have WPF, which is essentially you have to type out exactly every single detail, and it's just a mass. It's 10 times larger than WinForms. So getting to the point where we can recreate this inside of NinjaTrader 8 has been just a massive undertaking. But long story short, we've made quite a bit of progress there, and I'm expecting that once we release the next update next week, that will probably be on Friday or Thursday. It'll definitely be next week, but I wanted to get a few more things in there before we actually send it out. So after that, then it'll just be a matter of adding these functions in one by one, which should go pretty quickly. So I'm pretty confident we'll have a beta by the end of the year, and we'll be running the trading room and actually completely using NinjaTrader 8 starting in January, maybe even the last week of December. So that's the goal. And I'll get into some of this other stuff here in a minute, but let me just see if there are any other questions here. Yeah, exactly, Bill. Bill's saying, so the disadvantage to you on that account was our advantage. More automation for us. Yeah, exactly. Bill, I'm not putting this one on YouTube, but I'm not going to edit this. I'm just going to, once it's rendered, I'm just going to upload it and I'll email it to you guys. My focus, literally 18 to 20 hours a day, has been to get everything done so that I could finalize all of the files and get it out to the current owners. That's my main focus, is getting the tools done and getting all of those that are already on board hooked up, satisfied, and working properly. So the volume analyst for NinjaTrader 8, let me just go over that for a minute, because I know a lot of you guys that are in here are curious. So let me do this first. Thanks, Justin, man. I appreciate it. It sure has taken a lot of effort. So we rebuilt everything. We've rebuilt literally everything. And as well, on Tuesday, I'll have several free indicators for you guys. So I've had to create some of these different free indicators to be able to do the momentum analysis more effectively, to do some of this pattern recognition stuff. So some of these are inputs for the other indicators. And we figured, well, they're fairly simple, so we may as well just give them out for free. Which again, I'm not really interested in making a killing here. I'm not trying to take advantage of anybody. I'm just trying to make enough to support my team and continue development. For NinjaTrader 8, we actually found quite a bit that was a little disturbing with the Sharp DX, the interaction between C# and DirectX. Some of it did have to do actually with, that part I'm not entirely sure yet. I think there's one that has to do with the multi-threading stuff. But we've added in some new features here. I know this is, most of you guys really won't understand at all what I'm talking about here, but we've exposed a selection of moving averages that you can choose from to create the signals. And we've exposed some other properties here. We've really beefed this thing up. It's way faster. It's working perfectly for range charts and Renko bars, which were a problem, actually. And it's working really, really well now. So I haven't released this yet because what I'm doing is making this way, way, way more understandable, easier to use, and this is taking me quite a bit of time, as you can imagine. I mean, what I'm producing here is pretty intense stuff. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so Justin is asking, does the volume work better on NT8 as opposed to NT7? Yes, it does, because everything new that we're adding to Ninja 8 only. And the main thing that we added there was the ability to do relative volume on tick-based charts. And I'll show you some of that here in a minute. And that's really the key there. So the main thing that I wanted to get done before I sent this out was to unify the layout of all of the functionality so that you guys would be able to use it and actually understand it and understand what it is that you're modifying, understand all the properties, the way everything's built, and really be able to customize it. Bear with me 1 second here. Yeah, the 4.0 version will be probably February. That's a huge amount of code base that has to be sorted out. All right, well, this is unbelievable here. Typical. There we go. Right when I was about to shut it down. Okay, so this is the main thing that I've been trying to get in here. Let me show you how we've organized this. So you see the property structure here for the volume? Really, the names are just kind of long and everything is mixed in. It's hard to understand the layout, and it's just kind of a mess and a huge, huge, huge number of properties. So this volume indicator is essentially 7 different indicators in one, okay? And all of this is based off of the work of Richard Wyckoff. So Wyckoff is he's one of the fathers of technical analysis, but he specialized mostly on volume and pattern recognition and how volume interacts with price and range and the movements of markets. So let me just give you a little bit of background before I get into this. So I got started in Ecuador working at a fund directly out of college. It was a private equity fund. It was a family money, basically. And I was working for them. A couple of the guys there, what they were using was market geometry and volume analysis. And they had a pretty good track record. I mean, they were pushing, 10%, 15% a year pretty regularly for just about a decade. So that's where I got exposed to what is market geometry, which is, trend lines and channels and median lines, Andrews pitchforks, that sort of thing, which is real supply and demand analysis. And I'll get into that here in a minute. But that was the tool that they used to define the areas that they wanted to trade from and to. So that would define entry price and exit price as far as a target. And then they would confirm based on volume as per Richard Wyckoff analysis. So they were doing all that on weeklies and dailies and, looking across, it's well over 1,000 different instruments, mostly stocks and some futures. And my boss, which was a good friend of mine that I went to school with, wanted me to get into just futures trading and day trading and learn how to automate and systems design. So he wanted me to study because we went to school together, and I kind of helped him out a little bit in school. I did pretty well in school, and so he wanted to bring me back and kind of build out this investment company, and which was basically an extension of what they already had. So that's what I did. I studied automation, worked with those guys, studied what they were doing for swing trading, and then went into all of this huge, long, never-ending rabbit hole of all that technical analysis is. And it can go on for literally years and years. And, well, I'm sure most of you know, it's a never-ending thing. And you can go off on some pretty wild tangents. And of course I did, but through that process, I learned quite a lot about testing, at least for, manual back testing, and a ton about technical analysis. I mean, we literally spent well over 150 grand just on courses and training and software. So by the time that was 2007, so that was the peak in the market. By the time 2009 came around, it was done. I moved back home to Florida and continued on with building out systems, testing. I mean, I've done this literally at least 12 hours a day for the past 10 years, 11 years. I don't know if it's a passion. I think it's more of an obsession. I think I have OCD, actually. Pretty sure I have OCD. Yeah. So long story short, I wanted to get to the point where I could automate as much of this as possible. And once I did, and this was about 2013, I really very, very quickly realized that just about 95% of what's being taught and sold to people, you know, the guys that are selling it, they may truly believe that what they're teaching and pushing is accurate and you know, worth money and makes money. But it's pretty easy to prove that most of the vast majority of what they teach and sell just not only doesn't work, but it literally cannot work. So statistics and patterns and what you think are recurring patterns that you can capitalize on, it's not really what most people think it is. And it's actually pretty easy to prove what can work and especially prove what doesn't work. And that's literally what I did for about 4 years, working with, I think it was well over 200 individuals, creating custom automated strategies for Bloodhound customers, where I would actually program out the rules that they wanted, and then we would test them, and pretty much well over 95% of the time, even though you may have some good back tests here and there, when we would run it forward in a live environment, you know, at least live sim, it would lose money over time. You might have a month or two of some really incredible gains, but then the next month you'd give it all back. So give me 1 second. All right, so that's when I got back into, well, what do I know for sure works? And how can I piece together some of those methods into a system that I can actually make money with? And that was my goal, and that's what I did. And then I started a sim track record, simulated trading track record with those methods. And those methods are market geometry, really advanced volume analysis, and price momentum analysis. So combining those 3 tools, okay? And the fact was that what I needed to be able to do that analysis effectively and efficiently, it just did not exist. So I started into this really never-ending quest of developing the tools necessary to perform the analysis that I needed to perform as quickly, efficiently as possible, and then also be able to create automated signals based on that analysis. And that's what we have here today. So this is the volume tool, and this is, again, based on the works of Richard Wyckoff. After him, there was Tom Williams. Bill Williams did some stuff with volume per range, but it's really incredibly simple. But Tom Williams took some of the work of Richard Wyckoff, took it a little bit further, still lacking in my opinion. Barry Taylor coined the term churn bars. A churn bar, it's a very narrow range, high volume bar. And I kind of, you know, I've literally studied all that there is available to the public on volume, and found that it was all pretty well lacking, and have since developed this tool, which really takes volume analysis to a completely other level. So the problem with volume, and this is the main confirming tool that we have, and since I'm already talking about it, I'm going to start with this. This is what we use to confirm the areas that we want to enter the market at to initiate the trade. All right. Again, we're defining those areas where we want to enter and where the likely targets will be based on supply and demand, but a proper application of supply and demand. All right. A lot of people think that supply and demand is just literally looking at, you know, where did the previous area of demand come in? Well, that would be here. Well, that means that if you come back to that area, well, then you should have demand come back in there. Well, that's not the way that the markets work. The markets move in very structured waves, which have a geometric nature to them. That may sound ridiculous to you if you've never used this or studied this or whatever, but it's really very easy to prove. Rich is saying that the screen is all pixelated. Is anybody else having an issue there? How are we doing? Could be your connection. Okay, a lot of people are saying everything's fine. And I'll go back and get to some of those questions. I just want to kind of get it on here because I really have no idea what I'm about to get into, but trust me when I say that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to market geometry and volume and momentum, and the tools that we've developed are really second to none. We're truly at the forefront of what's even possible. So I think you'll kind of see that. I'm not going to get into the automation tools today. It's really too much. I think all it would do would be to overwhelm. But after we release everything this coming week, we will have a webinar where we'll go into that to some extent and release our Analysis Live service, which I'll briefly talk about here in a minute, which is essentially all of the analysis that we're doing in the trading room sent through a server directly to your computer so that all of it shows up directly on your charts. And I'll show you some examples of that here in a minute. All right, so with the volume, the problem with volume is that I think it's pretty self-evident, but I'll say it anyway. Volume is what drives the market. It's what creates price, right? Should be pretty easy to understand. It's the volume that's coming in, the buying and selling of the volume, that moves price up and down. And I've heard so many people say that, oh, volume analysis, it's a waste of time, it's garbage, don't worry about it, it's too confusing, you can't make any sense of it, and it's just a total waste of time, and nothing could be further from the truth. It's actually the most important indicator that we have, if you want to call it an indicator. It's really the first order of what we're looking at here. Price is second order. It's the result of the transactions. And each transaction carries with it a certain number of contracts, and that is the volume. All right, so we have three major pieces of information. We have the number of transactions that are occurring per time period, however you've sliced it. And we have the total number of contracts, which is the volume within those transactions. That's volume per tick. And then we have the price range of the bar. How far did price move within that time period that you've determined based on the chart period, or within the number of transactions that you've set for the base of the chart. So you can define the chart based on time, or based on ticks, or volume, or range. Okay, I'm interested in the movement of price within a fixed time period. How many transactions did it take to move price that far? And how much volume did it take to move price that far? That's what creates price. That's what supply and demand is. How much volume and how many transactions were necessary to move the market each bar, the distance of each bar and the distance of each swing. Okay, so that's the backbone, that's the meat to what we're looking at here. And then within that structure, as defined by the different chart periods and types that we're looking at, how is it moving? What are the size of the swings? What is the relation of the average range from one bar to the next and from one swing to the next? Is it increasing, decreasing? So there are a lot of things that we're looking at within this tool that people can try to do discretionarily, but it's really impossible. And the main thing that this tool does now, especially for tick-based charts, is it's giving us this relative volume calculation here. So this is raw volume here on the bottom. And you see, once you start getting back into here, it's really pretty low volume in the overnight, especially for something like the ES. So what the relative volume is doing is it's looking at the total amount of volume that transacts for one time period for the bar, for the time within the bar, compared to that same time period per the previous sessions, for however many sessions back you're looking, whether it be 4, 10, 15, depending upon the size of the chart. And that gives us a really detailed view into, is this typical volume or is it low volume for this time of day? Because you have a seasonality effect. Throughout the day, you have very high volume at the open, a lull here at the lunchtime, and then you have a really high volume close. So just looking at the bars themselves without running it through any sort of a filter, if you want to call it that, it's really not a filter, but just for the sake of describing it here, we're essentially massaging the data in a way as to make it the most useful possible. To take data that's essentially, for the most part, unusable, and making it to where we can actually see and verify some recurring patterns that we can actually capitalize on, that have a probability of telling us what the next potential move will likely be of greater than 0.5. So we want to know with a certainty greater than 0.5, a probability greater than 0.5, that X will happen, or that Y will happen after X, you see. So I'm just kind of looking here. I really have nothing planned. And this is the low of the day on the 29th. What was that, a couple of days ago? And there we have what I was referring to, that Barry Taylor coined the term, a churn bar. And that is a very high volume per range, narrowing range bar. Okay, I just want to get this point across very briefly. This is what helps you determine when you have very likely, not very likely, but that you do have support coming in at a low, which is demand, or supply coming in at a high. If it takes a lot of volume per the range of the bar, the high minus the low, if it takes a lot of volume to move the market that far, and it's a smaller range than the previous bar that had even less volume, you know that if you're moving down into that you have hit support. There's really no question. But you don't know that the support is winning out yet. You might just be hitting an area where, you know, a lot of institutions have some orders sitting there and they're just filling the orders, and the selling is going to overpower it and keep moving it lower. You don't know that. And that's where the market geometry comes in, defining the most likely areas where the market will reverse. So when we start to see this really high density, we call it, very high volume per range, it's a very dense bar. There's a lot of contracts that make up the volume within that bar, and the bar is a narrowing range, narrower than the previous few bars. So on this bar, you can see what's happened here. It's even greater density. Density is the plot behind the skinny plot. Skinny plot is the actual relative volume. Fat plot is the relative density. So it's a little bit less volume, relative volume. It's actually greater raw volume, true volume, but it's much higher density because the range of the bar is even narrower. But what's happened here, it's closed up off the low. It's a clear sign of demand coming in there. Very clear sign of demand. And of course, this was a major area predefined by the market geometry. And this is how we confirm those areas that we're trading, which if you watch that last video I uploaded on YouTube, I haven't been doing that because I've been focusing on development. This entire year has been all about development, getting all the tools completely refined. Like I said, we have 2 full-time developers. So, I mean, we're nonstop making this stuff as good as it possibly can be. And I'm writing the specs out and they're cranking it out. So that's been my focus this year. So I haven't really uploaded any videos. I'm not really focusing on marketing. To be honest with you, I really don't care about marketing. As long as we have enough coming in to pay my team's salary, that's really all I care about. So the time that I've spent over the past 3 weeks, I've spent 5 minutes on this presentation. So this is not a presentation, essentially. I just want to get everything perfect and out to those of you that have been supporting us over the past couple of years here. So that's my focus, taking care of you guys and making everything as good as it possibly can be. So back to this is how we confirm those areas through the volume, okay? The volume and the momentum, which is what I'm going to get into here in a minute. But it's this relative volume that gives us the data that really nobody else has or could have. And then to be able to get relative volume data on a tick-based chart, a non-time-based chart, is really pretty spectacular. I'm not going to try to go into that right now because I want to get through a little bit more. I'm already 45 minutes into this. But you see this? This is a extreme density. So this is really huge amount of density, which means we've clearly hit support without a doubt. We've hit a massive amount of support right here, but it's on a wider ranging bar. So it's kind of climactic action. So you have about 4, I say 6, but you have really 4 basic ways that a swing can end. And just to quickly run through it, you can have, so there's always a fight between supply and demand, right? There's always a fight between supply and demand. But what will happen sometimes is that those with a lot of money, very deep pockets, they'll kind of, they'll foment a kind of climactic move out of nowhere and push the market really far very fast and then immediately reverse it. And if you have been in trading for any length of time, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody wants to day trade, and that's whatever, but when you're sitting there watching the screens, you're waiting for your setup, and most people don't know what their next setup is. They're just watching and, you know, shooting from the hip, pulling the trigger, but you see it start to move without you, which is going to happen 90% of the time when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. But you start to get antsy. You're, you know, fear of missing out. You're like, man, I could have bought here and sold here and I'd have made all kind of money. And what happens is when you see it start to move really quickly, and it's, again, without you, you get this kind of a panic point and click, boom, and you enter, and the next thing you know, you've bought the high of the day, and it's going straight down immediately after that. Well, that's a typical kind of a up thrust into a sort of a V-top corrective wave, a C wave, and then immediately reversing it back down. So that's one way that they'll put in a swing high or a swing low. Another way would be that selling just simply kind of dries up. You get a sort of a climax, and then it rejects a little bit. Let me find an example here. It's a nice little low there. Yeah, so right here, You get a climax. Momentum's fairly high right here. And then you get a little bit of a sign of weakness. It comes down a little bit, down to sideways. And then when it tries to go back up, see if you don't have relative volume, you see the real volume, and that's at the open. And you think, oh, wow, it's a huge amount of volume coming in. So you're like, okay, well, it's probably going to keep going up. So you buy it. And then what's happening? The actual relative volume has totally dried up here. And that's your next major high. So that's a buying climax, a sign of weakness, and then a retest of that high on much, much lower relative volume, and then it reverses. So that would be a second way that the market can put in a swing high. And that's our kind of signature volume divergence pattern here, which is all completely 100% automated, all in real time, no back painting, no funny business. We're not trying to, you know, I'm creating the tools that I need to build what I'm doing, which is, you know, maybe it's some mad scientist OCD stuff, but it's very precise. I know exactly what I'm doing and what I'm putting together, and I'm making it available to support the work. So you see this high here? You've got a huge buying climax there. It's 10 times the amount of volume that typically trades at that time of day, which is about midnight. Very wide-ranging high momentum bar, and then what happens? Total loss of momentum, narrow range. Momentum picks up a little bit more, but then what happens here? Narrowing range, closes a little bit off the high, and a huge amount of volume. It's still 5 times normal, and very, very high volume per range. When you divide the range of the volume by the range of the bar, that tells you very, very clearly that supply has come in there. Okay, so this is the tool that we use to confirm the areas that we're wanting to trade from. And then the market geometry, again, defines where we want to trade to. And we use this tool to confirm those areas. So if you can see here, just to briefly do this, give those of you that are already with us a bit of a overview of what I'm making for you here. So this is the current property grid, the layout of the volume analyst tool, which again is 7 different indicators built into one, which can now actually in Ninja 8 communicate with each other. So we can build pretty elaborate condition builders and whatnot. I'm not going to get into all that. So it's pretty chaotic in here, to say the least. And to learn this and be able to use it effectively, well, you don't have to learn all this to be able to use it effectively, but if you wanted to modify it and take it, you know, to the next level and understand all of this completely, thoroughly, which a lot of you guys do, it's very difficult for you, and I understand that. And so what I've worked to do, and this has been my goal for you guys, is to make this stuff as easily understandable as possible. So we've been putting together a user guide and restructuring the layout and making everything as nice and neat as humanly possible so that you guys can really master this thing and learn all the ins and outs. So this is the new property grid here. It's much, much cleaner, and you can see it's only 6 sections as opposed to just madness in here. Now I'm getting into the details now, but that's kind of my nature, I guess. But you see how cluttered and crazy it is? So we've got this really dialed in now. It's nice and neat and quite beautiful, really. Well, that sounds weird. I think it's beautiful, but I'm just a little old weirdo here. So it's really, really, everything is completely unified. The user guide will be one and the same for 7 and 8. And it's helped me to kind of work through how to teach this stuff properly and how to structure the user guide and make it as concise and condensed as possible. So that's what I've been working on. It's what we've been working on together with some of these new features in NT8 and cleaning up the code, making it faster, and fixing some of the problems that we've had. All right, so that's kind of the 1 hour overview of volume. Goodness gracious. All right, so now let me show you something else. You'll have to forgive me here, but I'm not entirely prepared as usual, but it's for the best. This stuff is happening at rapid speed. It may not seem like rapid speed to you, but I assure you it's coming together as fast as alienly possible. So this is the divergence tool that we're using. And what I've done with this is really, it's quite incredible, if I do say so myself. This is the tool that enables all of the advanced pattern recognition stuff that we're doing. So I thoroughly see why no one has done this before, and why there isn't really a tool available to do these sorts of things. So the problem with pattern recognition is that the amount of code that it takes to create this stuff is literally, it's novels, man. It's just a huge, huge, huge code base. So, I mean, think of trying to do facial recognition software. Think of how massive the code base would be for that. Now, granted, this isn't that complex. This isn't facial recognition, obviously, but what we're doing, everything that we're doing, regardless of what you may think, trading is all about pattern recognition. And naturally, you want to be able to confirm that the patterns that you think are profitable, that you think give you an edge, that you can know a probability greater than 0.5 that Y is going to happen after X happens. Proving that sort of stuff out requires some pretty advanced knowledge and capability. And if you don't know how to program, then it's going to be very difficult for you to prove whether what someone is telling you is actually accurate or not. Okay, but one of the patterns that, and I've read all I could get my hands on about automated trading and system development and this and that. And of course, there are a lot of really good dudes out there that have produced a lot of very useful information, but there are a lot of other, I hesitate to use the word charlatan. No, I don't. They're charlatans. They say that they're experts and that they know what they're talking about because they wrote a book, but they really don't. And one of the things that you'll hear is that divergence is not a useful pattern. That somehow everyone is convinced that RSI divergence or MACD divergence is useless because they've built an indicator that finds divergence and then they've run some back tests and proven that it's useless. So I assure you, it is no easy task to build a divergence indicator. This has taken literally, we were talking about it the other day, probably about 15,000 hours between writing out the specs and programming it and fixing the bugs and all of that. And that's that's two of us combined. So 15,000 hours each. And it's just a massive code base to be able to do what we're doing here. But what I've done with this, the tool that we need to be able to do the really advanced pattern recognition is a tool that we can actually not only measure the swings, but look into the swings and know exactly what is happening within those swings and be able to put that into an automated system, be able to access all of that information within an automated system. And this is one of the things that I need to be able to automate fully the trade management aspect of what I'm doing here. So in NinjaTrader 8, we're designing this massive core for all of the tools to share the same backbone, which is a pretty massive system. So we're combining all of this together in NinjaTrader 8. So when if you were to have the toolbar, the divergence, and the volume, and then the entire reader system, which I'm not even going to try to get into today, all of it will be unified in a core DLL, and each component will be able to access everything from the other components. Okay, so what this algorithm here has done, and we went ahead and redid this for NinjaTrader 7 because that's where the code base was, but because most importantly, I needed to figure out the best way to do this component for the pattern recognition in the volume analyst, the rest of the stuff that I'm wanting to do in the next 4.0 version, and it needed to be rebuilt. So rather than doing that in NinjaTrader 8 and taking even more time, we did it with the idea in mind of making it as extensible as possible and as portable as possible, so that the majority of the code base is really just cut and paste into Ninja 8, and then kind of modify the properties to fit. And then the main part is this WPF user interface for the controls and for the input for the oscillator. So what I've done here, we can use any instrument. We can look at market internals. We can compare the ES with the YM, the Dow with the S&P 500, NASDAQ with the, you can compare any two instruments that you want, and you can compare any indicator that you have in your library here. All right, so one of the things that I did, and I'll go back into that pattern recognition tool here in a minute, but one of the things that I did to be able to perform the types of momentum calculations that I wanted to do, something that I think is much more efficient and accurate and gives me a better look into the true momentum within the swings and within the price movement, is be able to normalize these different indicators, but especially the balanced momentum, and be able to bring that into the divergence, which we've renamed here because it's totally rebuilt, but also be able for you guys, for any of you that use this, to not only be able to use the balanced momentum and normalize it so that the scale is the same on every single chart and instrument, which is one of the main problems with momentum, is that the scale is different. So you can't use a unified set of settings. So we went ahead and made this what we're calling a universal oscillator and a universal MACD, which I'm going to give to you guys for free. It's about 2.5 weeks of, it's at least 50 for Josh, maybe 60 or 70 for me. So it's a lot of time and effort went into this with all of these different oscillators built in so that you don't have to, try and figure out what are the ones that I could use for this tool. This is the short list of oscillators that I would consider potentially useful. Anything else is forget about it. It's a waste of time. There is no secret oscillator. There's no secret equation that's going to somehow, give you the edge that the marketer says it'll give you. Just, it's ridiculous. Doesn't exist. But what this tool does do is it unifies everything into one indicator, and then you can choose between the list of available tools here. And for each one that is unbounded, you can normalize the output. And then we've given you the ability to smooth the input to actually run any moving average on the price component input, so that you're not just using the closing price or the median or typical or weighted or whatever it is, whatever data point on the bar, but you can actually use a moving average for the input smoothing, and then a moving average for the output smoothing, and then run an average of that, and even have the difference here between the average and the primary plot. So it's a pretty cool tool. I mean, the only reason that I did it was for ease of use, ease of testing, being able to figure out, what's actually giving me useful information. I mean, I have that pegged already. I mean, I know exactly, for me, what is the best way to analyze the momentum of the price action. But for you guys, that's the short list there. So I'm going to give this out to you guys on Tuesday, together with about 20 other indicators here. So that's this universal MACD. You've got gapless MACD, you've got MACD BB lines. I mean, an oscillator is an oscillator, right? It's not anything to write home about, but there are multiple different variations, and there's a right way and a wrong way to use them. And these are the main ones that I would say you can make use of here. So we've got one for the MACDs, the different types of MACDs, which there are about 6. And then we've got one for everything else: balanced momentum, CCI, derivative oscillator, DMI, money flow index, rate of change, relative strength index, gapless, slow RSI, RVI, true strength index, stochastics. It's really a pretty little incredible tool that I'm going to give you guys for free. So with this pattern recognition tool here, which I know it's a lot of lines all over the place, but I'm showing you this for a very specific reason here. Let me turn everything off. So all of our visual controls are handled through these pop-out user interfaces here, and through the number of bars on the chart. So if you can actually use hotkeys to control all of this. But if you zoom in or zoom out, you can make it hide or not hide. And all of this, of course, is controllable here through a simple property. So what I've done here with this pattern recognition tool is by far, without any shadow of a doubt, the most advanced swing algorithm available to the public. Maybe some mad scientist at some fund has put together something similar, but there's nothing available that I can find that comes even remotely close to this. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at 3 different swing types and sizes. And we had a sort of a modified, very mediocre version of this in the previous divergence algorithm. But what it allows me to do now is really, really pretty incredible. I can't show you everything that I'd like to show you here. I probably need to wrap this up in about 20 minutes, but we're looking at major swings, intermediate swings, and minor swings. And it's how those swings interact with each other and how they're defined, the flow from one swing to the next, that really makes this tool what it is. So what I'm doing here, just to give you an idea, without drowning you in details, which I think I've already done. Each one of these, you see this 156? So this is a major swing. One second here, let me add this toolbar. And this is our reader system that gives us access to all of this information from within an automated system. This is the toolbar. This is really quite an exceptional piece of work here. So this is a major swing low here, and this is a major swing high there and there. That's an intermediate. Oh, forgot how to use my own tool. Yeah, so that's your intermediate swing low. There's another intermediate swing low. It's actually a double bottom. All this is accessible within an automated system. There's another double bottom intermediate low. All right, so what I'm doing with this is really pretty exceptional. I don't want to totally smother you here, but I guess I'm already well on my way. I may as well just keep on rolling with it, huh? So we have one price component input for the momentum, right? We can only look at one price. What are you going to look at? You're going to look at the closing price. You want to look at the median, which is the high minus the low, or sorry, the high plus low divided by 2. What's the best way to, if you had to identify one single data point on each price bar, what would be the best data point to use? Well, the more components you could, that's what I'm looking for. The more prices essentially you could bring in to create an average of the bar, the better. And what I've elected to do here is use the weighted price because it does give you the open, high, plus low, plus close, divided by 4. You could set it to whatever you want here. You could set it to weighted. You could set it to typical, median, close, or just the highs and lows. So that's what we were using before. It was just the highs and lows because we couldn't look at the close, median, typical, or weighted until the close of the bar, right? Because that's always fluctuating internally. While that bar is building, until the bar closes, that price is going to be fluctuating intra-bar. So it would be a performance nightmare to run all of these calculations on every single price change, which everything that we're doing, it has to be intra-bar. We need to check before the bar closes. If we're checking after the bar closes, then, what are you doing? You're missing, in a lot of cases, a majority of the move that's already happened because you're waiting for the higher time frame bars to close or whatever. So everything that I'm doing, I want it to be real time. I don't want any back painting. I don't want to say, hey, look at this awesome signal. Yeah, I would have gotten in right here and I would have made all kinds of money when in fact that signal, happened 2 bars later and the arrow was painted back 2 bars. That's silly. I mean, that's fraudster stuff, right? So I want something that I can actually use myself. And I want it to be as good as possible, as efficient as possible, and I want it to be the best. I want everything that I do to be the best. And I know that's been lacking as far as the training and everything I've been kind of putting together. But this is really coming together now. And it's I'm pretty excited about it, really. So what this enables us to do now with this pattern recognition tool is actually be able to look at whichever price of the bar, whether it's fluctuating or not, and get those signals in real time. And if it's found in real time, it'll be shown immediately. And then if it's canceled in real time, it'll be removed immediately. You may see it kind of find and unfind and find and unfind, but it's so much more accurate now. It's It's pretty incredible, really. So what this swing tool now allows us to do is perform those types of calculations efficiently without slowing down. It's actually even faster than it was before. And we're running 10 times the amount of calculations. Just doing it way more efficiently, way, way, way better. And it enables us to find, for instance, divergences such as this, where the low of that bar is actually higher than that low. So you couldn't find that before. And that's because we're using the weighted price, which is actually what the input of the oscillator is using. So rather than using the highs and lows of the bar and comparing apples to oranges, which is essentially what we were doing before, we're comparing apples to apples. And we are 10 times better off because of it. It's quite exceptional. Well, I'll just leave it on a line just to kind of show you. So that's the price that I'm using as the input for the divergence algorithm and the input for the momentum right there. So that's the weighted price of that bar. And that's the weighted price of this bar, you see? So that's how we're able to get much, much more accurate results out of this. And yeah, I imagine most people that have tested something, along the lines of quote unquote momentum divergence in the past with the simple ways that they had to have done it might say that, maybe it's not useful. But in fact, it's not only useful, it's incredibly useful. And one of the main patterns that we use to confirm some of the really, really obvious and significant reversals that tend to move pretty quickly in the opposite direction is this triple divergence pattern here. Okay, so I won't go into too much more about the swings. Essentially what I'm able to do now is look at the momentum of the swings even. So the speed of the bars, ticks per bar, average range percentage per bar, which is an even more accurate way to measure swing momentum, and get all of that information within a data series and count the number of bars and require corrective waves that take up a certain number of bars and do all of that inside of an automated system. So this is stuff that's quite truly never ever been done before. And yeah, I think it's quite an accomplishment here. I wish it was completely done today, but it will be next week for sure. So this is one of those patterns here. You see what's happening? Let me just remove that, clean this up a little bit. Turn off a bit of this. Oops. Bit of that. And a bit of this. So this is measuring these major, which I'm only showing the major swing highs and lows. They're measuring back to the preceding major low. So that's 47 ticks from here to there, 156 from here to there, 184, and so on and so forth. See? 265, 253. So what this is doing is it's looking for consecutively waning momentum swings. Very high momentum up here, waning momentum, even more waning momentum here, and that's your triple divergence signal. So the level of pattern recognition stuff that we're doing now, yeah, there's nothing that can even hold a candle to it. I don't think anyone with any sense would even release any of this or sell it, but kind of have to. Yep. Got mouths to feed. All right, so with this, the momentum, the divergence algorithm with the volume, and then now with the market geometry, which will take me forever to open up that workspace and show you. Let me do this. I don't know why Ninja messed up on me there, but it's probably something to do with an old template that I had saved with the previous settings. So let me just do this real quick. What we're doing with this toolbar, everything that I draw on the charts as far as for finding the supply and demand lines, where we want to do business, where we want to enter the trades and exit, it's all done via this toolbar, which I'm able to use to draw objects on the charts. So I'll make this always on top. This is what we're using for the Analysis Live service, which has been just massively updated. It's really pretty incredible now. So that's what we're using to export the analysis. So let's say that we're in the trading room, I'm marking up the charts, I'm identifying where the next area is that I want to trade from. And I'm doing that like so, then kind of cleaning up the chart a little bit and figuring out, you know, where's the next likely area of supply and demand. And when I'm done, and I have it all marked up, and I can turn everything off just to make the screenshots nice and neat, or, you know, however I want to do it, I can then hit a hotkey and export it to a server, and anyone signed up with their email here and activated will receive my exports, or Josh's or Bo's, the two other analysts that we have, directly to their screens, directly to their charts, and then the templates that I have built out, the automation templates, when X, Y, and Z comes together, will produce a signal and an alert, and that's how we're doing this. So applying the market geometry, which I'll get into heavily in the next webinar, which I'm going to release everything next week, so I'll probably do it. I'll probably do it on the, I was going to say the 10th, so maybe Wednesday, like the 12th, and we're going to start a free trial for everybody that owns the toolbar, anyone that owns the toolbar, for this Analysis Live service for a couple of weeks until the end of the year. Excuse me, or at least for 2 weeks. And you guys will see the power that this is. It's pretty incredible. I haven't released it all yet because I have a habit of thinking that I can do more, which I think is my major problem in life. I always think that I can do more and better, and then I end up paying for it. But sometimes it does work out, and I end up creating some pretty amazing stuff, which I'm quite certain is what I've done here. So I haven't released it yet because I wanted it to be perfect. And I think that's just that OCD coming out. But anyway, it's perfect now. It's absolutely perfect now. And with everything finalized now completely for Ninja 7, which probably sounds crazy to some of you, but trust me when I say that it was absolutely essential to do it this way. I mean, I'm not a fool. I know exactly what I'm doing. And I had to do it this way to be able to get it into Ninja 8 properly, effectively, without wasting a lot of time, and working with a a structure that we already had in place so that I could begin to move forward at a more rapid speed. So if I didn't do it this way, we'd be looking at March or April. But now I think we're looking at the end of the year, maybe the second week of January. But I'm going to release all of this next week. And then I hope to have a beta and a beta of the divergences, which is now called the Divergence Analyst. It's just a really massive piece of, it's a masterpiece for sure. And that's going to be the backbone of our core that I was talking about earlier. So with what we're putting together, there's really, automation is actually in sight. Long story short, the types of things that we're doing discretionarily will now be able to automate, which is pretty cool. And that's been my quest. I mean, that's been my mission. Create the tools that nobody has, and I know why, very, very clearly why no one has. Because it's a nightmare, but it's been worth it. And I think you'll see that next week. Wish I could have showed it all to you properly today and done it justice, but you know, it's a massive code base, and I ask too much of our programmers as it is. I think I almost worked them to death the past 2 weeks. But hopefully they'll recover, and we'll be back to it on Monday. I'm used to this, though. I mean, it's kind of what I do every day. So I think that's more than enough for today. I'll take some questions. I don't want to drone on and on when I'm, totally unstructured and beginning to sound a little odd here. So I'm going to do a proper presentation on all this. Again, I'm releasing next week. We're going to start the Analysis Live service the week after that, and it'll be 2 weeks free for everyone. It's already been, everyone in the trading room has been using it, just kind of helping test it and get everything tweaked out. So now everyone that's been in the trading room has had the opportunity to use it. And every time I do an export, like I said, it shows up on their charts, but it also shows up with a screenshot in each of these Slack channels. So this is how we manage the trading room. And this is how we define where we're looking to enter the market and where the next target is. And every time we do a screenshot, it's going to be uploaded right here. So just to give you an example, like some of the screenshots, let me just do this real quick. I wanted to show this because I thought this was pretty cool. The dude sent me just a big thank you yesterday. I was talking about back in, when was it? It was a couple months ago that the high in crude was happening. Yeah, I wanted to show you this, and I didn't get it ready in time. So I was pointing out the major high that we had in crude on the weekly chart. It was literally the most beautiful set of areas you could possibly imagine. Let me see if I can just bring that one chart up real quick. And I was talking about at the time, I said, I've put a lot of money into this business to keep it alive, to keep it afloat, and haven't dedicated any time to trading per se. I mean, just kind of what I'm doing in the trading room, but not really focusing on trading until I get these tools finished for NinjaTrader 8, which I know everybody is dying and eager to get. So I was talking about at that high that was so clear and obvious that if I had an account, an equities account, I would build a massive short position in USO. Well, that's what this guy did. But this was quite literally the most beautiful swing high that you could hope to have here. Let me just draw it very simply for you. It's just quite incredible. And it was all coming together perfectly. Where was it here? I think it was the trend line from high to high. Yeah. It's like, it was literally 10 different areas that came together at that high on volume divergence on the weekly chart and the daily chart. So it was just a picture perfect swing high. And it was quite an obvious trade. And I just didn't have the means to put that type of a trade on at the time. So look at that, straight down. So this guy, it's a pretty cool dude. I've known him for a while. I think he's been with us for about 2 or 3 years. And he's been doing really, really well. 1 second. I just wanted to show you guys because it really is pretty cool. But, let me just give a disclaimer. This, I don't know for a fact that this is a real screenshot, but I know the guy, pretty good dude. He just texted me. We talked on the phone last night for the first time in a while. And he shorted that high in crude. He actually, I think he bought a 3 times inverse ETF. And the man has made it's ridiculous. And managed to hold it, which is what's even cooler. Literally had a couple of days of $100,000 gains. When you get this stuff dialed in, and I think that's what we're going to be doing, is moving more towards swing trading, which I think is where the money's at, really. Looking at more markets, more stocks and ETFs, having a larger base to work from, and really isolate those clean and clear, kind of cherry pick the trades. Problem is you have to have a larger account to begin with. So I know that kind of eliminates the possibility for a lot of people, but as far as consistent money with minimal risk, swing trading is where it's at. It takes less time, less mental fatigue, less chance of getting into a downward spiral, which usually tends to happen over a period of 1 to 3 days. When you get in that rut, I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, this is where the money is at, swing trading. And that's going to be one of the main focuses of the automation that I'm putting together, is to be able to make all of this interchangeable from one market to the next. Right now, I have to customize each strategy per workspace, and it's a little time consuming. So I'm trying to build an editor, which I think will take about 4 days, 3-4 days, to convert the strategy from one market or one workspace to another with a click of a button. We've learned quite a bit. My guys are really experienced and really pretty savvy and extremely good programmers, but in working together and them realizing that every single thing that I want to do has to be extensible, because I've got a million things in my mind that I haven't written all of it down, but I've written literally numbers of specs in here that I've written out. That's all ready to go for Volume Analyst 4.0. I've got everything is novels of stuff that we have that we're getting ready to work on here. So it's all coming together. It's taken a while, but it's absolutely worth the wait. I know this has been a totally random and chaotic presentation, if you want to call it that, but that's really all I got for you today. Next week, again, we'll release it, and then we'll do a proper presentation the week after, when we release this analysis live. It's pretty cool stuff. All right, I've got 50,000 questions. Oh, yeah, they'll be all brand new Bloodhound and Blackbird templates, just to give you an idea of what that looks like. So in Bloodhound and Blackbird, you can do things the simple way, or you can make it literally 10 or 12 times more efficient by spending some time with it and actually building it out as efficiently as possible. So with the signals that we get from the volume analyst and the divergence, a lot of those are compound signals. So for instance, for the 2-bar patterns, which would be like, let me just give you an example of one. This is a 2-bar pattern right here. You see? Big selling climax followed by a churn bar, which we did actually get into the volume analyst for NinjaTrader 8 update for the text alerts. There's a number of things that we got in here. I'm not going to try to go over it right now, but that's your 2-bar pattern right there. So that has 4 different degrees, 4 different strengths, if you will. So to do this as effectively and efficiently as possible requires 4 different charts, because we're doing multiple time frame stuff, and people can say whatever they want about multiple time frames. I mean, I've proven this stuff out beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's how you do it that's important, and volume has to be multiple time frames. Otherwise, you're not getting the proper segmenting of the data. You got to slice the data. So to do it across 4 charts with 4 different strengths of signal, well, that's 4 to the 4, right? 4 to the 4th power. So that's a lot of different combinations. And to structure this properly so that essentially I only have to use 1 solver per chart rather than literally 12 per chart, I had to go through this nightmare here, which was actually kind of fun, really. But it was difficult to put together for sure. So these nodes within Bloodhound, and I know half of you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, but the different logic nodes have multipliers that you can set to multiply the output. And when you have different combinations of signals from different charts, and here this tells you how many charts have the signal, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3. And then here, all 4 charts have the weakest, and then 3 of the weakest. 1 has the next. You see all these different combinations. So when the total gets greater than 0.8, then we get the signal. Okay. So the previous Bloodhound and Blackbird templates were pretty massive, and the new ones now are streamlined, as efficient as possible, and of course all built with the latest version of NinjaTrader and Bloodhound and Blackbird, which have both sorted out a lot of issues that were giving us trouble, which some of you probably, well, all of you probably still have with the old version of the volume analyst. But again, you'll have the new one here next week with all these templates. So this was a pretty massive undertaking, as well as the 27,000 other things that I've had to do over the past 6, 7, 8 weeks, but it's come together. I wanted it to be done by December 1st, but yeah, I think it would have taken any normal human about a year to do what I've done in the past 2 months. All right, let me get through some questions here. I have no idea where to even start. I'm just going to start from 1 o'clock Central Time. So if you typed anything in before that, I'm going to spend about 10 minutes answering some questions here. And I'm starting with Miran. You've mentioned in the beginning that you wanted to show the performance of one of the, yeah, I just showed that. It was a screenshot of the past 3 weeks. I think it is being recorded. Whew, good luck watching that recording. Oof. Yeah, I'll send it out. I'm going to upload it here. It'll render in about 2 hours, and then it'll take about 20 minutes to upload, and then I'll email it out about 5 o'clock. Yeah, for sure, Bruce. We've got a lot of training that's going to be coming with it. So that's been on hold so that I could get all this stuff done. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day and the week, and I wanted to get everything to the point to where the training wouldn't need to be modified. So I was trying to do this and plan this out and make it concisely and efficiently as possible. Try to make it all in the shortest amount of time without having to redo stuff, which seems to be my MO, do one thing and then have to do it again a week later, and then it's just chaos. So I've been really trying to structure everything better, the releases, the specs, the programming, scheduling, and it's still difficult to schedule development, but anyway, we've made a lot of headway here over the past 6 weeks. Real-time readout of the momentum of a given swing. Yeah, I'm going to That's one, you mean as far as text above the swing? Yeah, that's one thing I'm going to add. So I have all the data now. I just didn't add the text, but you can get it in the data series. If I added all of the information, it would be about 7 high. It was just a matter of, do we want to release this by the end of the month, or do you want to keep working on it? So I'll try to get one of them in there for sure. I think ticks per bar. And then the rest, it will be internal in the data series. How tricky is this system to learn to become competent? And is there much training? There's a lot of training, but the training is actually being rebuilt now that the tools are being finalized. I'm not going to lie to you. You can learn how to trade from a lot of different people, and they'll tell you 3 to 6 weeks. And that is a lie. It's closer to about 1.5 to 3 years. Despite, what anybody may tell you, if you're experienced already, I would say you could learn this and be doing pretty well within 6 months. But if you're brand new to trading, you're not going to go to med school for a week and then do brain surgery. You know what I'm saying? So you're not going to learn how to trade and be consistent in a short amount of time. It's not going to happen for anyone ever, despite what anyone may tell you. So I'm not trying to be negative. I just want to be realistic with you. And I'm not trying to sell you anything, and I'm not trying to convince you of anything. It's a very difficult thing to learn. Everybody says, keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah. I wonder if those guys are actually making money. I haven't seen any performance reports from people that say that. It's not simple. It's very complex what's happening in here. And what we're trying to do is anticipate that next move to some extent. I mean, you have to have, if you're taking a trade, then you're flipping a coin at least, but you're anticipating that the market's going to move in favor of your trade, right? Well, why would you do that if you don't have any conviction that it's actually going to do that? And if you have conviction that it's going to do that, what is that conviction based on? Is it based on reality, or is it based on some sort of quote unquote recurring pattern that you think can potentially make you money, or that is consistently, yielding a probability of moving X amount over X time greater than 0.5? And how do you determine that? Well, very few people do that sort of a thing. And a lot of people that don't do it properly. So what we've done here, as far as with the market geometry and the volume, I mean, I've not only proven it, but I've traded it over a year in that live track record I did, which goes one step further. In sim, yeah, I probably did about 3-4 times better because it was a simulated account. But I still, 4.5% in 9 months. So this is looking at how the markets actually work and why they move the way that they do, and recognizing patterns and what is actually producing the price action, which is number one, the volume, but then how the markets move in a structured sort of a geometrical fashion is the true application of supply and demand. And then, like I said, with the volume that actually creates the price, using that to confirm with how, the price action is moving into that high or moving into that low, and then knowing the difference between the 4 to 6 different types of way that a swing high can be put in, and what the different volume patterns are, corrective patterns. There's quite a lot to know. It does take time to master. It's definitely achievable. A lot of these dudes have. But I'm not going to lie to you. It's not easy, and you're not going to do it in just a couple of months, that's for sure. The training right now is a little chaotic, to say the least, as I'm sure anyone would tell you. But that's all being redone now. And it's actually going to be a lot easier to understand with the way that we've structured everything. Honestly, to this point, I've been hesitant to dedicate a lot of time to that because, in my view, the tools weren't up to par. I know they're 10 times beyond par, relative to what anyone else has. But in my mind, they needed to be finished. There's a lot of training that you can go through and learn, but as far as the tools and the application of the tools and really detailed, short sound bites, that's now feasible now that everything is coming to a wrap up here. Core element is market geometry to define the areas to trade from across more than one time frame, and then using the volume and the momentum tools to confirm that area. And then to get in as close to the reversal as possible, protecting your stop outside of that area and identifying the target, the next likely target, where you're trading to relative to how large your stop needs to be to minimize risk and maximize reward to make your R multiple as high as possible. Next webinar, you'll understand. If you're new to all this, you'll understand much more. Real-time volume weighted price. Yeah, available to the reader. In Ninja 7, yeah, we don't have the divergence on Ninja 8 yet, but we hope to have the beta before Christmas. Yeah, Bill, I am going to extend it. I am going to extend the sale. I think I have to. I mean, I got to give you guys time to go through some of the material. And yeah, I will be extending the sale. I was hoping to have totally finished everything and do a really spectacular presentation. But again, it is what it is. Like I said, my focus is on development, getting the tools perfect. That's my flow. I want the tools perfect so that I can do the perfect training and then market it just well enough to support my guys and just trading room, analysis live, exporting the analysis to people, and that's it. Yeah, I mean, I could give you a number of examples, but I'll get you some examples. I'm going to have some up on the website here next week anyway. We've got about 4 videos from the trade room over the past 2 weeks, and we're going to try to get those up starting Monday. So we're going to try to get all of those out, maybe one per day, every day next week. And then you guys will have a much better idea as to how all of this works in a live scenario. Will the volume profile still be in the toolbar? I don't think so. I think what we're going to do is put the volume profile in the volume analyst. So I think what it'll end up being will be the same thing that we have in 7, and then some. The idea that I have for the volume analyst is to have every single possible volume analysis tool all in this one tool. So that means volume profile, probably just click this or right click on it and then draw it. The bid ask data. Oh, we added this. You see how the width of the bars is changing with the size of the price bars? So we added that too, just to make it look a little nicer. But yeah, I'm going to have pretty much everything that you could imagine for volume analysis. Of course, we'll be using that bid-ask data to really refine the different types of climaxes in churn bars, the different degrees of them. Bill, I would say so. If you didn't want to start with everything all at once, I would say the toolbar. Master market geometry. That's the key to identifying the right areas to trade from. Then add volume and divergence after that. If I had to start with one thing, I would start with market geometry only, for sure. Yeah, the alert system that we have is totally incredible now. You have, it's beyond anything that you could possibly. So what we have now, even in Ninja 7, it's the same in Ninja Trader 8 now. We have, you can set an alert, and then if it's on another workspace, you'll get a pop-up message. It'll tell you what chart the alert is on. You can screenshot that alert. You can screenshot that chart and email it to yourself through our server from Amazon, actually. And not, totally bypassing NinjaTrader servers. If you can set it to where if you don't click the button, if you're away from your keyboard, then it will flip the workspace automatically and then take the screenshot of the right chart and then email it to you or save it to a folder. And you can even make it automatically save to different folders. I'm telling you guys, this is beyond anything that anyone's ever conceived of, the whole entire everything. It can auto create folders based on whatever you choose here: instrument, bar type and period, workspace. Email yourself the screenshot, set whatever sound you want. We've got custom sounds, custom sound folders, and that's for every single tool now, all of them. We have the same core alert system for all the tools. And you can make it function like an alarm clock where it'll wake you up out of bed if you want. You can make it ring for 10 minutes. You can make it ring for 10 seconds. You can make it ring until you click on it. If there's another way that you guys want to do the alert, I'll be very surprised. But if you think of one, tell me and I'll add it. I don't know of any other possible way you could do an alert. This is downloadable. This is all C#. It all works on the NinjaTrader platform, which is C# based. So all of our stuff is installers, DLLs that you would download and install, and then use our license to validate and use it. Yeah, next week, right, everything. We're releasing everything next week. Ninja 8, Ninja 7, yeah. Mike, if you want to talk about that, you can give me a call. My number is 985. Let me just put it in here. If any of you guys have any questions, I'll take calls for the next 2 hours while this is rendering. And if I'm on the phone with someone else, I'll call you right back. I'm not even going to try to go over marketing gimmicks and whatever and pricing and blah, blah, blah. Everything is 20% off. Master Suite is $5,000, which I think is a steal for this. People try to convince me to increase the price, but I just don't think that's fair. I did do that a number of times in the past. Literally we've added, this has grown from just a few functions into a massive, it's almost like a platform in and of itself. And then if you guys want to write me, port@tradetheplan.com. I put my, I put my phone number in the chat, but it's amazing how prepared I am for this today. Tell you what though, we've got some amazing stuff coming out. I'd much rather spend time on that than try to sell somebody something. So there it is, guys. I'm going to see if I've missed anything. Please, if I missed your question, I didn't do it on purpose. Just write it in and I'll get back to you tonight. Or you can give me a call and we can talk about it. Garrett, if you already own it, we'll sort that out. If you write in, my guys have a process for that. So if you just want to write in and mention that, they'll sort it out for you. But yeah, you'll get the discount. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. Yeah, it covers NinjaTrader 7 and 8 for 2 computers. So one license is good for 2 PCs, one at a time, and then both NinjaTrader 7 and 8. And it's only going to be lifetime updates for this year, starting January. For anyone new coming on, we might lower the price just a little and do like a yearly maintenance fee. I mean, the amount of stuff that I have for next year probably going to take us about 2 years to complete. So once we're done, everything's built, it's paid for, I'm going to be managing money and that's it. So just a lot of things that I want in place that nobody has anywhere, nobody has available. Yeah. Anytime you want, you can move from one computer to the next. All you got to do is write in and we'll take care of that for you. We're going to have a spot on the website where you'll be able to control that yourself here. Probably not until January, but we will have that where you'll be able to, swap out computer, your machine code. It's not the same as Ninja's. It's not a machine ID. It's we have our own licensing system. All right, guys. Well, that's 2 hours. It's better than 4. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it, Mr. Bob, Mr. Larry, George, Arnold, John, Jose, Rob, Jordy. Thanks, you guys. That's right. We did have a 6-hour one. Goodness gracious. Next one will be good. I promise. I'll actually make some real sense. It's going to be great. All right, you guys, I'm going to shut it down. Yeah, if any of you want to give me a call, like I said, I'll take that for at least the next 2 hours, and then I'll get this uploaded and emailed out to you guys here by 5, so within the next 3 hours. You're not seeing the price for the master suite. It should say 20%, which would be $5,000. We were having some trouble with the website this morning. Maybe something's acting crazy. And as far as information on the website, that's the least of my problem. So some of this stuff doesn't even make any sense on here. This video is not entirely accurate as far as how I developed the method, but it was demonstrating a tool. It sort of is, but the process was much, much more rigid than what I'm showing in this video. Yeah, click on Buy Now. 6250. There should be a code on this page. Right here. Use this code. So type in TTPBF18. TTPBF18. That's the toolbar. This is the full master suite here. There's the promo code here. TTPBF18. And then click apply. And there it's a single payment of $5,000 or 3 payments of $1,770. We're going to stop this payments deal next year as well. I mean, if you can't afford it, you don't need it. I don't like all this everybody going into debt and trying to day trade with a loan. That's craziness. So if you can't afford it, don't buy it, please. You don't need to go into debt. It's about the worst thing you can do with your life. Just go into debt. It's totally ignorant, which I was the king of 10 years ago. Finally, debt-free. And it is pretty liberating. It's amazing how little we know about that. Most people anyway. But yeah, please don't get yourself into debt for this. This isn't going to solve your problems. But if you want to learn how to trade and do it well and do it properly, then yeah, and you've got the money, then this is for you. But please don't do it if you don't have the money. Oh, goodness gracious. I forgot about the separate box for the questions. And you don't convert your MACDs to, yeah, you can do the MACD. You can do any of these indicators to histograms. You can make histograms from any of these. That's why we built that universal oscillator, so that you could do quite literally whatever you wanted to. So absolutely anything that you want to do with any of these, you can put a histogram on the CCI, you can put a histogram on the TSI, stochastics, you can do whatever you want with whatever input smoothing, output smoothing, average smoothing, with several different average types. It's essentially a way to build your own if you want to. I mostly did it myself for the normalization of the momentum. You can look at momentum a few different ways, but I'm talking about just the simple speed deal. How fast over how many bars. But yeah, there's a number of different ways you could do it. And I included all the ones that I deemed useful. So that's for the oscillators, the typical ones, and this is the one for the MACDs. MACD gapless, BB lines, 310 oscillator, which is Linda Bradford Raschke's. It's a SMA MACD with a different type of an average. The average calculation is a little interesting. And the awesome oscillator, it's literally an SMA MACD with different numbers. So I try to stay away from stuff people call awesome, but yeah, there it is. PPO is just a MACD in percentage, so you can achieve the same exact effect with the normalization that we have. Yeah, as is rate of change compared to momentum. It's the same thing, just in percentage scale. So technically the PPO is a normalized MACD, but yeah, I guess I should have included it. But I mean, it's the same thing. So the only difference is the values. No, it's not the same thing either, because you have different percentage change depending upon the size of the bars, depending upon the size of the chart. So it isn't normalized. It's in percentage, which makes it closer to being normalized, but the scale does change. Like if you put that on a monthly chart, you're going to have a much larger scale than if you put it on a 1-minute chart. So, but now that you mention it, I will add that in there for you. And all that's free anyway. So yeah, you don't have to buy that. It's a pretty significant tool that I'm giving away there, but I'm giving it away because it's an oscillator, and I see a lot of people selling oscillators and equations and stuff for thousands of dollars, and I find it absurd. So I'm giving all this stuff away for free. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, people got to make a living, right? But it just seems like so many people take advantage of, I don't know. So I wanted to give some of this simpler stuff away, for free. So when you sign up to that free membership on the site, you'll get access to that free members area. And here I go talking more and more and more, but let me show you. So we have a pretty elaborate members area. And then once I'm done releasing this stuff next week, in the Analysis Live, I'm going to finish putting together all of this training and updating the training. I've got a lot of PDFs I need to get uploaded here too. I just need to put the finishing touches on the updated files. So there's quite a bit here for free. And this is all about market geometry. There's a basic guide here, which is all free. You got some intro to market geometry you can watch. This is all free. This is a very elaborate guide that will probably, if you need to go to sleep and you're having a hard time, you can read this guide and it'll do the trick for sure. But data really is the most important. If you don't have good data, which is why I hate Renko bars, because they skew the data. Shouldn't say that I hate them, because they do present waves really, really well. They have their use. But as far as putting indicators on them, I find it to be useless information, but they do have a purpose. And I think they're pretty interesting for looking at market structure and such. But this is all about data, and it's a pretty elaborate guide, and it's free. Data is the most important thing that you have, and you need to understand it. So I included that. And then this Ninja Manager, this is what automates our startup process, so that when I come to my computer in the morning, everything is ready to go, and I'm immediately ready to take a trade if I need to, right when I hit my desk. Everything is up and running. I don't have any issues. It deletes the cache of data, downloads everything fresh every morning. It's pretty awesome. There'll be an update for this. If not by next Friday, it'll be probably over the weekend. So it's going to be a pretty massive update as well for NinjaTrader 8.16. I don't like scalping at all. It depends on how you define it, but yeah, scalping is not anything I'm really interested in. I'm more interested in swing trading. I think that's where the money's at. I'll show you this just briefly, but there's a lot in here. As far as the members areas, it shows you, whoops, don't look at that. Installation instructions, workspaces and templates, guides, change logs. That's kind of ridiculous looking, but each one of these is a user guide and change log. Installation instructions, all the workspaces and templates. It's all about our bar types. This is a learning plan to get you started through all the different sections, learning the Toolbar Pro, market geometry, Elliott Wave, volume, rules and guidelines, about the trading room. So we're coming along. I still have to redo this rules and guidelines document, which will be out by the end of next week with everything else. And then this is a list that you can sort and filter of training sessions, which is pretty massive. What happened to finding the entry that makes one tick each trade? That's yeah, that's something that we can't compete with. You're talking about high speed, high frequency trading. Not me, man. Not me. I think I was looking at it a long time ago, using those 2-bar patterns and like B tops and bottoms for scalping a few ticks, but I never got into it because I was doing really well with what we were doing. And it was just a matter of execution was all. Stuff works, but if I can automate some of my crazy out of nowhere being retarded, then I can eliminate so many mistakes. And if I can eliminate those mistakes, then so when I lose money, which, you know, you're going to have losing days and losing weeks, obviously it's statistically going to happen. You're going to have 8, 10, 12 losers in a row. You're going to have 2 weeks of losing in a row. But the majority of my losses have been from mistakes and doing stupid stuff. So that's what I'm working to eliminate the possibility of, the total possibility of. And that's where Bloodhound and Blackbird comes in. And I'll get into that the next time. Yeah, trailing stops don't test very well. I mean, you have to protect your earnings, but yeah, I don't know. It's a fine line. I don't want to get into it now, but it's the fine line between exit efficiency, entry efficiency, and maximum favorable excursion, maximum adverse excursion. And it's hard to grow an account when your exit efficiency and maximum favorable excursion are at odds. Well, I mean, it's basically the exit efficiency that is measured from your maximum favorable excursion. Long story short, if you consistently exit with a trailing stop, it's going to be difficult to make money over time. But at any rate, this isn't a training session, so I'm gonna lock it up. You guys want to call me? Go for it. Otherwise, I'll send you guys a recording here this afternoon. Y'all have a good one. Bye, everyone. Yep, y'all are welcome. Bye now.